Hello and welcome to episode 81 of Glitch Report. My name is GnittWitt. Thank you so much for stopping by, saying hi, kicking it with me today on the stream of dreams, the show of shows. You can find everything that I do over at my Linktree, linktree.com/GnittWitt, GnittWitt. That is the home for links to such pages as my Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky, Instagram, Threads, as well as links to find more great episodes of this podcast wherever you get your podcast. Though the primary looking at the numbers, listen, I've been doing some Scott Steiner math recently, and the numbers don't lie. They spell a reality where people listen to this podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube primarily. Oh, my eyes are itchy. Anyways, we have a fantastic show for you today. Just a quick note, we're recording this podcast prior to the big Xbox news. You know, they're kind of be talking a little bit about what to expect from their business update. That business update is coming in the form of a podcast and looking to address speculations in terms of bringing games to rival platforms. You know, are they going to put Forza on a PS5? Are they going to put Sea of Thieves out on, all this stuff? So just a quick note. It hasn't happened yet, and I need to record this podcast now. So we'll just get through that reality together. But we do have news. I have brought with me a huge amount of news, a lot of news as it pertains to Sony, a lot of news as it pertains to Arrowhead and Helldivers 2, which are, the part of Sony and all of that stuff. Plus we got some Take-Two news. We got some Immortals of Avium, kind of a retrospective looking back at what went right, what went wrong with Immortals of Avium from one of the former developers. Of course, this is a podcast about video games. We wouldn't be able to do it if we didn't talk about Embracer Group. We got some Silent Hill news, but let's kick it off talking about Sony PlayStation. Sony PlayStation wants to make money. Now, stop me if you've heard this one before, but a big business wants to make big business bucks. It's like big money Matt Hardy up in here. Sony wants to improve its PlayStation profit margins, and we've kind of talked about selling of games and the releasing of games and development of games and the cost to develop these games and all of that stuff. And we even talked about sales sales for hardware, sales for software. But we're at a point now with the game industry where a lot of these companies, it's not just Xbox, it's not just Sony, it's Nintendo as well. A lot of these companies are trying to squeeze blood from a stone in terms of profitability. Is there a stone that has been left unturned in terms of how they can make more money off hardware or money off software? Sony's kind of been this week talking a lot about that. One of their plans is to be more aggressive with the PC release strategy. So in the past, we might have seen a game release, 18 months, 24 months after release. And Sony, specifically like the Sony president and PlayStation chairman, Hiroki Totoki, kind of talking about wanting to be more aggressive in terms of, its profit margins, and that potentially being achieved with a greater focus on bringing first-party games to PC. Let's kind of talk about how we got there. Well, we got there a couple of ways. One, Helldivers has proven that if you release a PlayStation game day one on a PC and PlayStation, and it's good, and the people like it, and the stars align, and there's a message in your alphabets in the morning that says you're going to have a good day, and the horoscopes, right? Like, if the shit that needs to happen to have a good video game be successful happens, and it's a PlayStation game that's releasing on both PS5 and PC, it does quite well. Despite maybe a rocky launch, despite maybe a rough launch, a buggy, get it, launch for Helldivers 2. It's a game that's actually done quite well on PC and PS5. Like, huge Steam numbers for that game. And a lot of people like it. And I'll talk about my time with Helldivers later. But like for now, like showing that like, hey, this is a hot game and it stays at the forefront of people's minds a little bit better when there are more options available to play it on somebody's console or game machine of choice. Let's see if we can pull up some quotes here from Hiroki Totoki. In terms of hardware, so let's actually go back to hardware for just a moment here. In terms of hardware, he noted that, quote, cost reduction in this console cycle is really difficult to come by compared to previous generations due to the increased price of components, and implied that console prices wouldn't be dropping while it looked for ways to improve margins. One of the ways that it looked to improve margins last year was bundling stuff like Spider-Man 2 and Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 into the consoles. And basically you were getting the console for like $70, $90 off, depending on, what part of the world you were in. So not necessarily reducing the price of the console, but using software to provide a better deal for those looking to buy the consoles. Now you might be thinking, GnittWitt, back in my day, the game console machines had a game packed into it, Duck Hunt on the NES and all this shit. I don't think we're going to get to a world where that continues to happen, right? Because, and I know this sounds super fucked, but, Sony doesn't need to actually put out a lot of games at launch when the PlayStation 6 comes out. Why? Because you'll have a huge library of games that may benefit from the updates. I'm not saying PlayStation 6 is coming out anytime soon. I'm just saying that, like, realistically, you might have a bunch of games that are going to look better and play better on a PlayStation 6, even if they're the regular PS5 versions. And on top of that, you've been building a huge backlog of games, a huge library of games, courtesy of systems and services like Game Pass and PlayStation Plus and Nintendo's online service. Like, we're going to get to it in a little bit. We may be getting to a bit of a slowdown in terms of games releases for the time being. And for those of you that have been building up a backlog of games, been basically stockpiling for the nuclear winter that is going to inevitably, hit this game industry, you might be in luck because, you might be able to weather the storm in terms of like, well, I got, 3 Assassin's Creed games I haven't gotten around to playing, and I got, I got some sports games I wanted to try out, and I got like all this stuff. I've been stuffing my cheeks like a squirrel for the winter. Great. It's going to work out for you. But just to go back to the hardware sales, the idea being that, like, we might be able to reduce the cost of the console, not by actually discounting it, but by offering software as part of the purchase. Because again, the graphics, chips, and everything involved are incredibly expensive. So why not use software to reduce the price of hardware? Totoki then addressed the topic of first-party games and made it clear that he feels releasing them multi-platform continues to be the way forward. Now, when he said multi-platform, he did clarify, and he meant PC. Sony has no interest at the moment in putting Gran Turismo on an Xbox. For Sony, they consider multi-platform to be PC, PS5, and maybe even a service like mobile, right? Put a cloud version of Destiny on an iPhone or something like that. I'm not too sure what their plans are, but multi-platform for Sony does not mean Xbox or Nintendo. It means PC, PlayStation, and maybe mobile. In the past, quote, in the past, we wanted to popularize consoles, and a first party's title's main purpose was to make the console popular. This is true, but there's synergy to it. So if you have strong first party content, not only on your console, but also other platforms like a computer, a first party game can be grown with multi-platform, and that can help operating profit to improve. So that's another one we want to proactively work on. Think about Helldivers. It's a game that you can play on the PC. It's a game you can play on the PS5. And it's also a game that you can play together. My understanding is that stuff was broken at launch. I don't know if they ever ended up fixing it. But you can play PC and PS5 together and all that stuff. What a great way to be like, hey man, I know you're a PC gamer and maybe you weren't planning on checking out Helldivers. I picked up Helldivers. I really like it. It's a multiplayer game we can play together. What do you say? Right? That's kind of it. I mean, they kind of go on. Totoki assumed the role of chairman following CEO Jim Ryan's retirement and all of that stuff. There's more to talk about with Sony. I think this stuff is going to be a little more controversial than the idea of what if I could play Horizon Forbidden West on a PC. In fact, this shit was so controversial that stock prices actually dropped as a result of this, but I am no financial analyst. So, here we go. I'm getting this news story from Video Games Chronicles. As always, shout out to Video Games Chronicles. In the company's financial results for the 3 months ended for the 3 months ended in December 31st, 2023, Sony's gaming division reported another record quarter in terms of revenue, with PS5 sales reaching 54.7 million. But it lowered its sales forecast for the year after it fell behind in its lofty hardware target. The idea being that people over the holidays simply did not buy enough PS5s, despite the fact that they've now sold 54.7 million units. Sony Interactive Entertainment had set an ambitious sales target of 25 million PS5s for the year, ending in March 2024. However, in the latest quarter, it sold 8.2 million consoles, bringing the total for the year so far to 16.4 million. The company said it's now expects to fall short of its original target by 4 million units. And, again, this is my main man, Hiroki Totoki, out there talking that shit. And this is where the controversy kicks in. Quote, regarding PS5 hardware, which will enter its 5th year since launch, partially due to entering the later half of the console cycle, we're aiming to optimize sales with a greater emphasis on balance with profits. So we expect a gradual decline in unit sales for the next fiscal year onwards. Regarding first-party software, we aim to continue to focus on producing high-quality productions and producing live service games. But while major projects are currently under development, we do not plan to release any new major existing franchise titles next fiscal year, like God of War Ragnarok or Marvel's Spider-Man 2. So don't expect a big Sony sequel, this year. Don't expect a big Sony franchise this year. It might be a scenario where what's really available for PS5 owners in terms of new games is stuff like Helldivers, is stuff like Stellar Blade, is stuff like Death Stranding 2 on the beach, right? I'm sure that there's going to be more than just those handful of games. But I don't think you're going to be getting, the next great Sucker Punch game, the next great Naughty Dog game, the next great Guerrilla game, the next great Insomniac game, and that makes sense. Insomniac did just put out Spider-Man, but, not a lot of big silver bullets in the chamber for Sony this year, at least in terms of first party content, which to me kind of makes sense. And I'll tell you why it makes sense. Because gaming, in terms of the development for these major AAA titles, is getting out of hand. It's getting unsustainable. It's getting unrealistic. The cost to develop something like a Marvel Spider-Man 2 have ballooned beyond just, the cost of something like a major Marvel motion picture, but beyond that as well. Sony highlighted that Marvel Spider-Man 2, which has now sold 10 million units, is also, being considered in terms of Marvel Spider-Man series selling more than 50 million copies worldwide across PC and console. the sooner they get that PS5, Spider-Man 2 onto PC, the sooner they can continue to revamp those costs, right? The problem is that when I think about Sony games on PC, we're taking a game like Horizon Forbidden West, supposed to be a great game, fantastic game, follow-up to a fantastic game, right? Horizon Forbidden West is supposed to be a banger of a game. But how excited are people going to be to play Horizon Forbidden West on PC 2 years after the first game came out, or for 2 years after? When did Horizon Forbidden West come out? Before I get like too ahead of myself. When did Horizon Forbidden West come out? I know fact checking. Okay. Horizon Forbidden West came out February of 2022. So 2 years after that game originally came out. Are there going to be a lot of PC fans that are excited for that game now that it's kind of lost, the word of mouth, lost the cultural zeitgeist, whatever you want to call it, mind share? Are people really going to want to plunk down full price to play that game, including the expansion on PC now compared to when it came out? I think if Sony wants to try to recoup as much of its costs with these ballooning budgets, especially for their big first party AAA games, I think day and date on PC and PS5 makes the most sense. This is what I think anyways. Maybe I'm wrong in that, they actually sell just as many copies on PC after release, but like they can't even afford to put out games this year. And I'm oversimplifying it to some extent, but like the cost to make games is preventing them from putting out a big first party AAA game this year. That's crazy. That's crazy. But on top of that, it just shows that with something like Helldivers 2, a cheaper game in fairness, both in terms of development cost and purchase price, it catches that word of mouth and it lights up the world, right? And I'm not saying Helldivers 2 is like the biggest video game out there right now, but in terms of success stories for 2024, it's Helldivers 2, it's Palworld, and you tell me another game that's as big as those two. Tell me when I'm telling lies. Let's talk Arrowhead. Arrowhead is staffing up after Helldivers 2's success to beef up its content plans. Sudi wants to accelerate the rollout of new content for the co-op shooter. How about this? So I told you it was a big deal, right? How about this? No, I mean in terms of like Pug and a Burrito saying maybe Fortnite in terms of games that are bigger than Helldivers 2 and Palworld. No, you're right. I mean just in terms of like games that have come out in like this year in 2024. To me it's Helldivers 2 and it's Palworld, and I don't think there's another game that came out so far this year. I know Infinite Wealth. Okay, 3 games. Infinite Wealth on Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, Helldivers 2, and Palworld. Those are probably the 3 biggest games that come out this year. And you know what they all have in common? They all came out on consoles and PC at the same time. Since its release last week, Helldivers 2 has attracted over 200,000 concurrent players on Steam alone. And guess what? It is Sony's biggest PC launch to date. So now Arrowhead's got to staff up. With the success of Helldivers 2, we are going to start looking for more amazing developers that can help us accelerate and beef up our content plans, says the company. Jobs will be going up soon, but if you are a senior dev, there's always the quote open application and list today with Arrowhead Games. Arrowhead Games currently employs over 100 people according to its website. They've been patching that game. They've been working on that game. They've been updating that game. They've been trying to improve matchmaking experience and all of that stuff. In some cases, the game was crashing for some folks. I didn't have a lot of technical problems with my time with it. But yeah, there's still work to be done. Silent Hill 2. Let's talk about it. That trailer came out during the last PlayStation State of Play. It was a very combat-heavy focused Silent Hill trailer, specifically focusing around shooting guns, combat, and all of that sort of stuff. The reaction to it wasn't 2 kind. I know that game is in development. Bloober team is working on that Silent Hill game, trying to polish it up, get it out the door. No release date, no timeline, all that stuff. But still, the reaction to that trailer was not so hot. In fact, Bloober team president has now had to come out and talk about that reaction. Let's see if I can pull up that quote here. Let's see if we can get that quote. Currently has 54% likes on PlayStation's YouTube channel, with around 29,500 of the 64,000 users deciding to leave feedback, opting to give it a thumbs down. So Bloober team says that it's actually Konami who put that trailer together. Konami are the ones who put that trailer together, not Bloober team, stating, "This is entirely the responsibility of our partner. Certainly this trailer does not affect the spirit of the game. It is, quote, it is not the spirit of either what it used to be or what we are creating now. We are trying to fully reflect this romantic vision of the game, which debuted 22 years ago." People in chat wanting my attention. Hello. Hello. I can see you in chat. And if you have something to say, we'll chat it up. Quote, "We think that when players see the real gameplay, the real game, they will judge it in a completely different way." To which I say, you showed the game. Like you showed how do I say this? The trailer shows the game. The trailer shows what the game is. They didn't show a different game. It's not like the trailer for Silent Hill 2 was fucking Super Mario. It was Silent Hill 2, the remake. I understand if the Silent Hill 2 remake does not feature as many gun shooting action moments as what that trailer leads out to be, but you will be shooting guns in Silent Hill 2. You will be doing third person over the shoulder shooting. So I'm a little confused as to what the disconnect is between Bloober team and Konami, right? Obviously, horror games don't make for the most exciting trailers if you're walking around solving puzzles and trying to find keys for doors, right? Even Resident Evil learned this in terms of like, well, in the trailer we're going to show some spooky stuff, or we're going to really focus more on tone and vibe so much as the actual gameplay. So I'm a little confused. And maybe we will be less confused when they finally put out Silent Hill 2 for real. I can see folks in chat. I'm here. People want my attention. Pugging a burrito, we will do the reward. We'll have to do the reward another time. Your channel points got glitched. We can take a look at that. No problem. Let's talk Embracer Group. Embracer Group confirms it is now laid off 1,400 employees and says more cuts could be coming. That's about 8% of its global workforce. For those that are trying to do the math, carry the one, all that stuff. Can we take it from the top? They have shut down Volition. They have shut down Free Radical, and they have reportedly been trying to put up Borderlands maker Gearbox for sale. Embracer Group has also made layoffs at Gearbox Publishing, Tomb Raider maker Crystal Dynamics, Knights of the Old Republic remake studio Beamdog, Pinball FX maker Zen Studios, and Deus Ex Studios Eidos Montreal, among others. The company confirmed on Thursday that 483 people were let go during its third fiscal quarter, which ended in December 2023. Added to the 904 employees laid off during the previous quarter, which takes it to 1,387. Now you might be thinking, all right, they're cutting people, they're letting stuff, they're letting people go, but what about the games? Embracer has canceled 29 unannounced games and closed 7 internal studios during the 6 months that ended in December. 29 unannounced games. Never going to see the light of day. And you know what? Maybe those games are bad. Maybe those games are not great. Maybe those games are not hot. I don't know. But what I do know is that this is we talk about the ballooning cost of game development. Spending money you don't have is also incredibly unsustainable too. Right? Like, if you don't got the money, don't buy the studio, don't buy the people, don't buy the IPs, all of that stuff. Speaking of spending money in a foolish way, that's maybe a little harsh. Immortals of Aveum. Remember Immortals of Aveum? Came out last year. The reported cost for that game was about $125 million. Now that was spent, there was some miscommunication or some misguided, some fake news out there, if you want to call it that, saying that EA themselves spent $125 million on Immortals of Aveum. That is not true. The $125 million budget that we've been talking about is actually across both the developer and EA, and in some cases that developer was raising funds on their own to develop the game prior to EA taking over the project to publish the game. So we'll just get that out of the way. Immortals of Aveum was released on PS5, Xbox Series X and S, and PC last August and was met with reasonable review scores with a Metacritic score of 70. However, following the following month, developer Ascendant Studios laid off nearly half its staff, with its CEO saying it was down to poor sales during a crowded release window. Now, in a new report on IGN, an anonymous former employee of Ascendant Studios said the game cost around $125 million in total, and that making a single-player game with that budget was asking for failure. Quote, at a high level, Immortals was massively overscoped for a studio's debut project, they claimed. The development cost was around $85 million, and I think EA kicked in $40 million for marketing and distribution. Quote, there was some serious talent on the development team, but trying to make a AAA single-player shooter in today's market was a truly awful idea, especially since it was a new IP that was also trying to leverage Unreal Engine 5. What ended up launching was a bloated, repetitive campaign that was far too long. A second Ascendant Studio developer, who IGN says is still currently employed at the studio, complained that the game ticked a number of boxes that players seemingly want, but still sold poorly despite that. It's not a sequel or a remake. It doesn't take 400 hours to beat, has 0 microtransactions, no pointless open world grinding, they explained. Although not everyone loved it, it reviewed pretty well, sitting at a 74 on OpenCritic and mostly positive on Steam. No one bought it. One of IGN's sources also suggested that while people may call for CEO pay cuts or unionization following news of mass layoffs, sometimes they're just the result of an industry that isn't compatible with certain working environments, and that in their opinion, Ascendant didn't actually do much wrong. Quote, there's plenty of layoffs due to gross mismanagement and greed. Looking at you, Embracer, they called out Embracer in their quote. But there's also plenty that happened because this is a stupidly volatile market that requires mountains of capital to participate in at a professional studio level. For all the things Ascendant did right, paying people well, an entirely remote studio, little overtime until the end, a chill environment with lots of freedom to grow, respecting QA, hiring journos, etc., it did not work out. And that's, because it had a overblown, bloated budget. It was not scoped appropriately. But also, I gotta say, like, the writing in that game is not great. That main character kind of sucks. The game itself is pretty bland and generic. They made a first-person shooter where you don't have guns, you use magic instead, and it just feels like they are taking, blueprints of how a shotgun works in a first-person shooter, how an assault rifle, how a submachine gun, how a pistol works in a first-person shooter, and just applies that to different colored spells in the game. It never really felt like I was casting magic. It instead felt like I was just using pretty standard feeling real world military guns, but painted up to look like I was casting magic with my hands, my fingers, etc. So say what you will about what they did right. They also just, it wasn't a great game. So and I say that because they're absolutely right. Right? You can't spend $125 million to make a game that's not great in this market and not expect to cut people and all that stuff. Absolutely not. Right? You can't spend over $100 million making a brand new first person shooter, no intellectual property attached to it, none of that stuff. You can't make that game and have it be not great, and expect it to sell. That's not how it works. Let's talk Zaum. You might know Zaum. You might not. If you do know Zaum, you know that Zaum, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, are the studio that made Disco Elysium, the hit, critically acclaimed, RPG adventure game that came out a few years back. Now, there's been a lot of controversy and a lot of conflict going on at that studio, and it's prevented them from actually getting much of any work done post-releasing Disco Elysium. I know they did their final cut or director's cut. They did their upgrade version of Disco Elysium. If you remember, when Disco Elysium originally came out, it was there was no voice acting in the game. It was all reading text. Then they completely overhauled the game to include voice acting. And the crazy thing about all that voice acting is it's actually really good. It doesn't feel like an afterthought. They really got some incredible performances out of the voice actors in that update. So you should go play Disco Elysium. I know I need to go back and finish it, but Disco Elysium is fucking cool. And that being said, the studio Zaum, that is ZA/UM, is set to lay off around a quarter of its staff and has also canceled a Disco Elysium expansion, according to a new report. This is coming from Sports Illustrated. Says that according to its sources, the developers plan to lay off around 24 employees, making up roughly a quarter of its workforce. It also claims that a canceled project, codenamed X7, was going to be a standalone expansion for Disco Elysium. Now, according to the report, Zaum's president told staff that X7 was, quote, still 1 to 2 years away from completion and could possibly have taken up, quote, more time and effort that Disco Elysium did. More time and effort than Disco Elysium did, excuse me. The reported layoffs would mostly affect staff who are working on X7, but it's said they will also affect, quote, non-development teams and those working on other projects. Sports Illustrated sources say that this is the third project in 3 years that Zaum has either canceled or suspended, along with the Disco Elysium sequel and a new sci-fi IP. The news is the latest chapter in a studio that has had its fair share of controversy, most notably with a string of explosive allegations made in late 2022 by former Disco Elysium developers and the owners of the studio that fired them. In November 2022, Disco Elysium game director Robert Kurvitz and art director Alexander Rostov claimed that an Estonian company called Tutrik KOU, you're gonna have to Google that one yourself, kids, acquired a majority shareholding in the company. They were, quote, were quickly excluded from daily operations. Their employment was terminated and their access to the company's information was shut off. They then alleged that the Estonian company that acquired the studio did so by fraud, by illegally taking money from the Zaum business itself and using it to buy its majority stake. I don't know how that works, but I don't know how white-collar crimes work. Zaum then responded by denying accusations of fraud and said that several employees have been dismissed due to, quote, egregious misconduct. The studio added, while we are confident that Zaum will prevail in court once all the facts are heard, we believe it is necessary to address baseless claims and falsehoods, if only to rightly defend Zaum and protect our employees. So basically, don't expect a Disco Elysium sequel ever again. Don't expect anything from the studio because they're too busy fighting with themselves and their new parent company, I guess, in order to ever put out another video game ever again, which is a shame. But also, again, you should go play Disco Elysium. I should finish Disco Elysium. We should all go play Disco Elysium. We got some rapid fire news stories to get through. Indie hit What the Golf is coming to PlayStation. If you've never seen or played What the Golf, you should check out What the Golf. It's coming to PS5 March 14th. It is already available on iOS and on PC and Nintendo Switch if you want to check it out there. What the Golf is a fantastic game. I played it on Apple Arcade and I thought it was a good time. Take-Two has delayed the new action RPG from Ori and the Blind Forest developer Moon Studios. No Rest for the Wicked is now scheduled to hit early access on Steam just before July. Yeah, so look forward to that. You have something to look forward to, I guess. RuneScape developer Jagex was acquired in a deal thought to be worth 900 million euros. That is just over $1 billion US. I love RuneScape. There's not really much to say here. I love RuneScape. I've been playing RuneScape off and on for 15 years ish, just under 15 years off and on playing RuneScape. RuneScape, if you don't know, a PC based, a computer game. It is a massively multiplayer online role-playing game. In my opinion, one of the best fantasy MMOs ever made. And I've been playing that, like I said, off and on for like last 15-ish years or so, give or take. Put a lot of time into that game, put a lot of hours into that game, and I love it. And I always think about going back to it every now and then, but it is a game that will just annihilate all sense of time. There's a lot. I mean, they've been updating and working on that game for a long time. There's a lot to see, a lot to do. My only hope is that this private equity firm, CVC Capital Partners and Haveli Investments, that have purchased RuneScape maker Jagex, keep that company on the straight and narrow. I know there's a lot of concerns around the way they monetize RuneScape these days, the way they make money, the idea that you can actually basically buy progression in that game. Like, I just want to have a better character. Oh, well, just give us money instead of actually playing the game, and you can have a better character in RuneScape just by spending money. And then a reminder, the Microsoft big Xbox business update is going to be happening later today. That is on Thursday. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk my time playing Helldivers 2. We're also going to talk Palworld, because I've been getting into Palworld. Maybe you've been watching the streams, maybe you haven't been, but I've been playing a lot of Palworld. And then we're also going to quickly chat Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Stick around. We will be right back. Welcome back to the podcast. I am continuing to be GnittWitt. I'm keeping it kayfabe. Call me GnittWitt. I'm in character as GnittWitt. And we're here to talk about Helldivers 2. I played some Helldivers 2. You know, rocky launch and all that stuff didn't scare me away too much from playing Helldivers 2. I decided to pick up Helldivers 2, pick that up on Steam, and I put about 2 hours into that game, and I think that is enough for me. I think that's enough for me in Helldivers 2, and let me explain. First, let's talk about what Helldivers 2 is. Helldivers 2 is a multiplayer, cooperative, third-person science fiction shooter where you play as these super soldier Helldivers that are, dropped onto planets to fight giant alien bugs and robots, all in the name of protecting humanity from doom. It has, and it shouldn't be a surprise, I guess, if you've looked at any of the marketing and the materials for this game. It's got a lot of that Starship Troopers thing going on, and they know it, and they acknowledge it. There's a lot of wink and nods. Super Earth, defending, democracy. I'm doing my part, service, guarantees citizenship, all of that stuff. And it's fine. I think it's a really funny game. I think, it's, tongue-in-cheek interpretation and representation of fascism and the military industrial complex and all intergalactic violence and warfare. It's all fun and good. I think it's a very funny game. I think it's got a great sense of humor. I like it. I got no problem with it. What do you actually do in the game? Well, there's a couple of things. So, when you start a game, you can play with up to 3 other players online. There is no sit on the couch and play together co-op. It's all online. And what happens is you are choosing a planet that is currently part of the war. The one thing I just want to stress is that when it comes, you are in the menu of the game is you walking around a ship. When you finish the tutorial in the game, you are taken to your home ship, your base of operations, and you can choose the name, and you can make some really silly names for your ship. It's all pre-made configurations, but you can be like, oh, this ship is called the Sword of Destiny. This ship is called the Song of Democracy. This ship is called, my ship is called the Shield of Justice, goofy shit like that. Again, it knows what it's trying to do tone-wise. And on that base, you can do things like customize the look of your Helldiver, choosing different helmets, choosing different armor, paint loadout, like paints for your armor, capes. You can also customize weapons. You can also customize what you bring into the field in terms of supply drops, because when you are in a mission, you can call in, a turret. You can call in, we need ammo. We need medical supplies. We need a big machine gun, whatever. We need to drop a nuke on these giant alien bugs, whatever the case may be. You can call that stuff in, but you manage that stuff in your base. So it's not a scenario where you're actually just sitting there looking at menus before you start the mission. You do actually physically need to walk over to the terminal to upgrade your stuff, to the terminal to change your loadout and all of that stuff. So when you get to the mission choosing section of the game, you are basically walking up to this big war table on your ship. And from there, it actually tells you how the war effort is going. There is this concept of a persistent war that everybody is contributing to in Helldivers. So when you pick, say, Mars, it'll say Mars has been 50% eradicated so far, or hey, 89% of the enemy forces still occupy, this section of the planet, or whatever the case may be. Because as people are taking on missions, as people are playing the game, you are conquering, democratizing, whatever you want to call it, liberating one planet after another in this never-ending war effort. Now, they've already talked about how they're going to be implementing new game modes and new updates and new enemy factions and new planets and all that stuff. So, you might think, oh, wow, I'm really making a difference. Me and my team just help clear out 0.001% of this enemy hostile planet. But war never ends because they're going to continue to update the game. So again, you get it, right? The whole thing is a big joke, but it's a funny joke and I like it. So when you pick a planet and you can choose the difficulty that you go on. It starts out with the trivial difficulty, then it goes easy, then it goes medium. And the more you play the game, the more you'll unlock multiple difficulties. And there are apparently a large amount of difficulty options to choose from. And when you choose a difficulty, it will kind of give you an idea of what you can expect in terms of the objectives that you are supposed to complete while you do that mission. The higher the difficulty, the more objectives you might need to complete, or the more difficult those objectives might be once you get there. So you choose your mission, you enter your hell pod, and you drop onto the planet, right? I played a couple of games. I played one or two games. I think I played about like one game by myself and about 2 games or so with some online folks, just some random people. I might have played like 4 games in total. I don't quite remember. I did skip the tutorial just so I could get straight into the action. And I was able to pick up what you're supposed to do in that game, though. Obviously, if you're going to be buying the game, I do recommend going through that tutorial. It does assume you want to do it when you start the game, though you can skip it if you would like. Before you actually launch onto the mission, the planet, you can actually choose where on the planet you're going to drop. And the map will show you like, oh, we have this objective here. We have enemy hostiles here. We have unknown, scans are telling us that there's something going on over there. So you can actually choose where you drop. And because you're playing with other people, assumingly, you can play it by yourself. And I'm going to get to actually playing it by yourself versus with teammates in just a moment. You can totally be separated from your squad immediately. Like you can go drop, the ass end of some part of the planet and be, immediately overwhelmed with bugs, or, they're going to have to run over there to save your ass, or you're going to have to regroup, or whatever the case may be. It definitely, you get this sense of like you are a part of this squad working together with people, because again, even though you can play by yourself, I would not consider this a single player game. This is definitely a multiplayer game, best played primarily with people. If you can get on the headset, talk to your boys, talk to the squad, all of that stuff, I think you'll definitely have a better time than playing with random people. But you would definitely have a better time playing with random people than you would playing the game by yourself. But let's continue. So as you make your way throughout the planet, you're shooting giant alien bugs, and you might come across, oh, this is a side objective that's like, hey, we got to raise the flag here because we're liberating democracy or whatever. So we're going to sit around and raise the flag. And as soon as you do that, it triggers a bunch of giant alien bugs that come over there and try to stop freedom and democracy from happening. You shoot the alien bugs and then the flag raises, and it's like, hey, here you go. Good job. You got some money. You got some experience points, and maybe you got some upgrade materials that you can use back when you get to your ship. Here's the thing. Some of the resource materials that you get while you are in a mission can be lost if you die. So if you die during a mission, you will drop your stuff. However, the game has accounted for people dying because your teammates can't, or unless everybody else dies at the same time, your teammates can actually call you back into the action when they request a supply drop. If they request a revival kit, basically a new hell diver played by you will come down from the sky and be back in the fight. But it does mean that you're going to have to, or your teammates or somebody's going to have to run over to your stupid corpse and pick up the research blueprints or the materials or whatever that you lost in order to keep it, because you do not keep the stuff that you find unless you actually take it out of the mission with you when you extract. The idea is that you drop into the planet, you do the missions, and then you call in your Pelican like helicopter thing, and it flies you out of the mission. And if you don't fly out of the mission, that's it. You lose your shit. You will earn some experience and stuff like that, but you will not get a lot of the resources and upgrades currency that you need in order to progress in the game. But let's go a little bit further. So there's friendly fire in the game. Same with Helldivers 1. And first of all, what I just want to say is if you've played Helldivers 1, you know that a lot of this is the same thing. The biggest difference between Helldivers 1 and Helldivers 2 is that Helldivers 1 was a top-down, kind of arcade, shooter, whereas Helldivers 2 is a third-person over-the-shoulder, you're a lot closer to the action in Helldivers 2. So we'll just say that. So there's friendly fire in the game, meaning that if your teammate throws a grenade, if you throw down a turret, or if you are running around acting a fool, you might get shot by your own teammates. You might get shot by your own turret. You might get blown up by your own grenade. War is hell. And I think that can add a lot of fun, dynamic action to the game in terms of, how intense and crazy it can be. Like, oh shit, I'm surrounded by big alien ants or bugs or whatever. And I'm just, just letting that machine gun sing. But I just killed my man over there because he caught a stray bullet because I am running and gunning, recreating that scene from Predator where we just shoot into the jungle. And it can be very fun. It can be very goofy, but it is a game that has a lot of these maybe tough systems in place. And then on top of those tough systems in terms of like, hey, if you die, they have to bring you back. If you die and you don't pick up the resources that you found, you might have to go find something else, to pick up in the other environment. Hey, if you accidentally shoot your teammates, it will kill them or accidentally damage them. The other thing is that if you reload your gun and you still have bullets in the gun, it will throw away that bullet. It is clip based. It is not bullets based. If you play a game like Uncharted and you shoot a gun and then you reload that gun, it magically has accounted for the single bullet that you shot. So even though you see Nathan Drake putting in a fresh clip, it still has the full bullets minus the one that you shot. Whereas in Helldivers 2, if you shoot a bunch of bullets, but then don't empty the clip and then reload the clip, those bullets are wasted. It's also a game that does not automatically reload for you when you are empty. You do need to remember to reload the bullets in that, or reload that clip. You don't have to actually load the clip itself with bullets, but you just have to reload the clip into the gun when you are done. Of course, there are shotguns and stuff like that, and that's going to be more slug and cartridge based, so it's less opportunity to waste bullets in some of those guns as well. So if you are a frequent reloader, then great, use a shotgun because then you won't waste the bullets in the shotgun compared to letting a couple rounds off with the assault rifle and then immediately reloading and then being like, ah shit, there goes 25 of my 30 bullets. It's hard. It's not an easy game. It's not like brutally hard, but it is a pretty tricky game to the point where teamwork would definitely help you, prevent things from friendly fire, to prevent things like accidental death, to prevent being overwhelmed by, enemies, to prevent getting lost, and being separated from your squad. Like teamwork, can definitely help take the edge off the difficulty. The enemies can easily overwhelm you. Even on medium difficulty, you're going to fight some real badass bugs. It can be a little tricky for sure. And I think that is where ultimately Helldivers 2 kind of falls apart a little bit for me. You might remember Helldivers 2, one of my most anticipated games of 2024. Here we are in the year of our Lord, 2024. And I think it's okay. Actually, no, it's not an okay game. Helldivers 2 is a really, really cool game. It's a fucking amazing game that I just don't think works for me. If I can get a bunch of homies together, even two extra people, and it's a squad of 3 or so, and maybe we get a random guy online to join us or something. It's almost like trying to find a unicorn for a threesome, whatever the case may be. you can't, like, I tried to play a level by myself. I played like one of the easiest missions by myself. So you can adjust the difficulty before you start a mission. And like when I'm surrounded by alien bugs, there's no one else but me, right? Like there's like, you know, I have to call in every ordnance drop, every supply drop. I need to do all of the work. I need to go scout the locations and look at the map and, you know, figure out where to go. I should mention, like, when you get into the planets and you're actually in the mission, it's like a pretty large, like, open world. Like, there'll be cliffs and valleys and mountains and water and, you know, bases and these different, it's kind of post-apocalyptic in its design. But, you know, there's, oh, excuse me. There is a, you know, smattering of different locations that have been applied to the world to give you, you know, like, hey, this is a part of the world, or there's just a bunch of eggs and you got to shoot the eggs, and like, oh, this is a base. Can you finish the research that the scientists were trying to do at this base before the enemies take over the entire base, or whatever the case may be, right? So you have a main mission, you have a bunch of side objectives that you can go do. There's a bunch of collectibles and you know, money and currency and resources that you can find in the planet. You're also on a timer. It's like typically like 30 minutes or so. And the game will reward you with additional bonuses if you finish early in your mission. But again, you know, you're balancing that time with, oh, maybe we should go explore this missile silo or this abandoned research facility to see if we can find some extra stuff. Yeah, there'll probably be enemies. Hell, there might even be a boss battle there, but you know, we can get some extra resources beyond just the main thing that we set out to do in the game. But like I said, if you finish quickly and you extract out of the planet successfully, you know, they do give you a time bonus. So there is a bit of a crunch in that game. But again, I think the crunch and the combat and the dynamic nature of the conflict and all that stuff is super cool. Like, I really wish that I could find a way to play that game with people I know and have a great time, because I think it's fantastic. I was watching some people stream it on Twitch, and it was a 4-person squad. They all knew each other. They're all on, you know, headsets and talking, and it looked like a fantastic time. It looked like an amazing time. But when I was playing by myself, I found it frustrating. And when I played with other people, yes, the game does have actually in-game chat options where you can point to, oh, I pointed to a point of interest. Hey guys, follow me here. Hey, I need help. Like, you can actually quickly with your controller command your teammates to like respond to you and be like, hey, I'm down. I need help. Hey, I need ammo. Hey, I'm going over here. Hey, help me. Hey, found big alien bugs there, whatever. Right. So when you're in the shit and the bullets are flying and you're just scraping by, and you walk out of a battle and you're just covered in green goo and all that stuff, it's a hell of a time. It's a hell of a time. My only thing is that if you don't necessarily have a squad of people that you know and love, or whatever the case may be, people in chat wanting to play some Helldivers 2, that might be a possibility if we can arrange something. Though. And I'm going to get to the but in just a moment. But I think it's a very cool game. I think Helldivers 2 is a fantastic, intense, third-person, you know, science fiction shooter. Like, there's nothing quite like it out there right now. And for those that are big fans of something like Starship Troopers, for those that are a big fan of sci-fi shooters, for those that want a game that is constantly giving you stuff to upgrade and customize and all of that stuff, if you want a bunch of systems that you can fuck around with, you know, in terms of upgrade options, like it has that stuff, and it seems like there's a lot of content to chew on if that is your thing. Again, I just think that, like, if it's not really a game that you're going to want to play by yourself, and playing with random people online, whether you choose to, you know, voice chat with them with a microphone or not, I think your results may vary on your total enjoyment of the game. Depending on how you squad up with people. Are you playing with all randoms? Are you playing by yourself? Are you going to play with people you know? Results may vary. And then the other thing I'll say is that it does have microtransactions in it. It does have the option to spend real money in the game. The game's about $50 Canadian, I think 40 US. And I will say that you do have the option to earn all of the stuff that you could spend real money on in the game. So keep that in mind. It will definitely let you spend real money if you want, or you can put in the time and effort to actually earn those premium unlocks for free if that is your thing. I'm sorry I keep rubbing my eyes. I just got like itchy eyes, man. I don't know. I got hungry eyes. Anyways, that is kind of my thoughts on Helldivers 2. Because I wasn't too sure if I was going to have like people to play it with. I have a friend of mine who's like humming and hawing about it, thinking about it. He's also thinking about getting it on PS5, and I don't know if that crossplay multiplayer stuff works yet or not. I actually ended up returning, getting a refund on Helldivers 2. I purchased it on Steam, ended up getting a refund on it. So I don't own Helldivers 2 anymore. And thank God for Steam's return policy of, hey, if you played a game for less than 2 hours over 2 weeks, you can get a refund on it, which is amazing for this digital world that we live in. I'm surprised Sony and PlayStation don't have something like, Sony and Microsoft don't have something like that. But I actually ended up refunding Helldivers 2 because I just don't know if I'll have like the people and time in my life to commit to something like that. Also people saying I'd wait for it to come on like Game Pass or something like PlayStation Plus. Absolutely. I bet if you can get it on like PlayStation Plus, or if it comes to, you know, some sort of free or discounted thing, like I think that's going to be like, if you were like, hey, friends and family, like it's $20 or it's free on PlayStation Plus or whatever, what do you think about trying out some Helldivers 2? I bet you could easily get a lot more people to at least try that game if it was a little bit cheaper. Though it seems like if you spend the money and you like it, you will really end up loving your time with Helldivers 2. I just wished I was in a position to love Helldivers 2 as much as it seems like one is capable of doing. Now let's talk Palworld. So Palworld came out, I think January 19th, came out on Game Pass on Xbox, came out on Game Pass on PC, came out on Steam. And it was described as Pokemon with guns, right? It was this big, hyped, anticipated thing. And when it released, it ended up being one of the biggest games to come out this year. And at the time, I kind of dismissed it. I kind of was like, yeah, whatever. Like, I'm not the biggest Pokemon fan, and this game just seems kind of weird and goofy and maybe not for me. And then I started hearing about what that game actually is. And what Palworld is Palworld, for those that don't, I know, please don't get mad at me for trying to explain this. Some people might not know, but Palworld is a open world survival RPG. Similar games in comparison would be something like V Rising, which was just announced for PlayStation, Minecraft, Ark, Rust, Valheim. That's the type of game that Palworld is. It is a open world survival crafting crafting RPG, right? And I'm not really a big fan of those types of games, right? Like I don't often find myself in a situation where I want to, you know, bang a stick against a rock or bang a rock against a stick to craft resources and build my own shelter and acquire my own food and try to, Sons of the Forest, also another, that type of game, though Sons of the Forest trades in horror, as well. But like, usually I'm not the biggest fan. I did spend a decent amount of time playing Valheim. I will say when Valheim came out on early access originally, I did spend a lot of time playing Valheim. Valheim is a, open world crafting survival RPG, but with Viking trimmings and Norse mythology and all that stuff. So what do you do in Palworld? Or what's the setup? Well, the setup is that you make your character and then you find yourself on this mysterious post-apocalyptic island, or world, excuse me, that's been taken over by pals. And pals are these monsters running around the world that have designs significantly inspired by Pokemon, hence Pokemon with guns. And in Palworld, you start off by, making yourself an axe and making yourself a pickaxe. and making yourself a bed and a house and acquiring food. And basically the idea is that you are trying to live off the land. You are trying to, eat food to survive and stay warm when you enter cold environments, or stay cool when you enter warm environments. But on top of that, the way that this game is a lot like Pokemon is that you are actually capturing, training, and taming these pals. There are a lot of different pals out in the environment with different properties, different strengths, different weaknesses, different abilities. And my understanding is that this is actually a lot like Ark, which Ark is one of these types of games, a survival crafting open world game. But the catch with Ark is that it's dinosaurs, right? So you're running around the world, you're seeing different dinosaurs, you're capturing these dinosaurs, taming these dinosaurs, you're riding these dinosaurs, you're building a dinosaur farm in your home and all that stuff. And my understanding is that Palworld's actually very similar to Ark. So the thing with Palworld is that yes, you need to craft bows and arrows with the resources you find in the world. You need to go cut down a tree to get the wood, to build the arrow, to build the hut, to build all that stuff. But as you eventually, craft more intricate and advanced technology, whether that be a slightly better spear or, stronger armor, or, a farm that produces berries, or a farm that produces wheat and all that stuff, you can eventually use the pals that you have captured and put them to work. And yeah, this might sound like indentured servitude. I'm not here to tell you one way or the other if that's what you do in the game. But for example, if you find a water pal, you can use that water pal to water your crops. And if you find a grass type pal, that grass type pal might be able to plant the seeds. And if you find a pal that has opposable thumbs, or more humanoid like hands, you can use it. That pal might be able to cut wood, or mine stone, or, harvest resources. And all of a sudden you have a scenario where you can have a grass type pal, plant crops for you. You can have that water type pal water the crops, and then you can have your, normal or, more humanoid like pal harvest the resources. And all of a sudden you kind of have a self-sustaining, kind of a little village going of hey, these guys will never starve because they'll always have food because they can actually plant and, the food themselves. We have pals that are, keeping the fires lit because they're fire type pals. So everybody will stay warm and cozy. I have a pal that has these big antlers. It's almost like a deer, and that deer is being used right now to cut wood for me so I can keep the fires lit and build my house and all of that stuff. And it is very much that you build one thing, then you can build a slightly better version of that thing. You can do slightly better, use slightly better technology, and then, the resources required to make that better technology get more advanced. And eventually you have to go further and further out into the world that you start in, or further and further out from the base that you've created, to acquire more advanced, technology or blueprints or schematics or resources and all that stuff. So again, I know this is a very basic, way to approach this, but there might be people who have never played Minecraft or don't know what I'm talking about. So I'm trying my best to be you put the stick with the rock, and then you can do better things. You start off as a caveman, basically, and you can eventually get better stuff. The difference is that you can find these creatures out in the world that look like Pokemon. And I don't play a lot of these games, but man, oh man, has Palworld sunk its teeth into me. I'd have to look up how much time I've spent with that game, but over the last week, I have excuse me. I have made kind of a complete 180, 360, 720. I don't know what you want to call it, but I have completely changed my thought on Palworld. And I think part of that is because it is such a novel game. For me personally, I put about 9 hours into Palworld over the last week or so. I think it's such a novel thing because I just don't play a lot of these games. If I'd played a bunch of Ark, or if I'd played a bunch of Minecraft or something, then yeah, or Lego Fortnite or whatever, then yeah, I'd probably be like, Palworld doesn't actually do that much different from these other types of games. But the loop of upgrade your stuff, go look for better resources to upgrade your stuff, explore the world. Oh, I found a cave. That cave had a bunch of, had an egg in it, and I found this crazy, fire egg, and then I'm going to build an incubator for this egg that can hatch this crazy pal that is super rare or some other part of the world. That gameplay loop is a lot of fun. Now, I'll also mention that it is a third-person game, over-the-shoulder game. So, you are shooting bow and arrows, you are using pickaxes and axes and spheres and all that stuff in a third-person perspective. The combat is all real-time, so if you see a pal or a monster, or there are also like human enemies out in the world, you can just run up on them and stab them or shoot them with your bow or whatever the case may be. As you play through the game, you'll earn experience points. You'll earn experience points for capturing pals. You'll earn experience points for fighting enemies and killing enemies. You'll earn experience for crafting resources. And as you do that, you will get skill points. Those skill points can be used for things like, I can now hold more resources. My backpack can just hold more resources, so I don't have to worry about slowing down when I pick up too much shit. Or, now my attack is higher, or my stamina is bigger, so now I can run for a longer period of time. I can climb for a longer period of time. I can swim without worrying about drowning for a longer period of time. You can also do things like, I increased my handiness, so now when I go and I craft something at my base, it won't take as long because I'm just faster with my hands. The other thing is that depending on the pals that you have working at your base at any given time, you might start a project like, I'm going to build this mill, right? We're going to work on this grain or whatever. So I'm going to build a mill. And if you have pals that are good with, using hammers to build stuff, they will just immediately join you to help you build whatever project you're working on, then go back to whatever it is that they're working on. The really smart thing about Palworld is, like, if you have a task or a chore that your pal can do, it kind of automatically does that stuff for you. So all you really need to do is build whatever it is that you're trying to have in your base. And if you have appropriate pals working at that base that you've captured, they will just do that stuff automatically. As you upgrade and build your base, you'll be able to have more pals working. So I think I have like 12 or 13 pals working on my base, and it's just like this crazy thing of like, I don't know, there's this fire guy over here, he's helping me smelt iron ore into bars, and this crazy deer is cutting wood for me, and this penguin is like watering my crops, and it's just kind of this self-sustaining ecosystem that you end up building with the pals that you have. There is a lot to see and do in that game, despite it being early access. There's a huge collection of skill tree. The skill tree, basically you start with, low tier crappy equipment. And as you play more of the game, you can build better stuff up until the point where, like, I'm almost close enough to start building guns. Like, I am almost at the point where I can stop using bow and arrows to hunt enemies. And instead I can use straight up guns. And eventually you'll be able to give your pals guns too, which is fucking crazy. Like, you've probably seen that picture of the sheep with the big machine guns. Like, you'll eventually get to that point in the game, which is really crazy. And I'm willing to give it up to the fact that I don't play a lot of these games, so a lot of these concepts might be super novel. But Palworld has really sunk its teeth into me. If you've had the opportunity to check out some of my streams on Twitch where I've been playing some Palworld on my days off, when I have time off, I've been playing Palworld. I have not interrupted my Assassin's Creed Valhalla streams to play Palworld. So if I have time before a work shift or something like that on Saturday, Sunday, Monday, or Tuesday, I have been trying to play some Palworld where I can. But keep in mind that on Wednesdays and Fridays, we are sticking to Assassin's Creed Valhalla for the time being. Still got a lot of story stuff to go through with Assassin's Creed Valhalla, but when I get the opportunity, I am trying to stream some Palworld because it has been a ton of fun. Going out there and being like, I found this chicken pal, and I can harvest the chicken pal to make, food or feathers or whatever, and all of that stuff. I can create a little chicken coop of my chicken pals, and they'll lay eggs, and we can have eggs and all that stuff. Like, I get distracted a lot playing that game because I'm like, oh, look at this thing. Oh, look at this pal that I never seen before. Oh, here's a cave. Here's an enemy. Here's this stuff. Like, I wonder what's that on the ground. What's this resource I've never seen? I wonder what happens when I, hit this or poke this or talk to this person. Like, there's a lot of that stuff to do in that world. And I have found it to be quite a good time. So expect me to play some more Palworld in the future. I'm going to say right now, Palworld is probably my favorite game to come out so far in 2024. I have been quite impressed by it. I know it's in early access. I know they got a lot of work to do, and I don't know how much longer I'll continue to play it. It really depends on, if I get burnt out or if I feel like I've seen all the content there is to be seen. But as of right now, big thumbs up. I am shocked by how much I'm enjoying Palworld. And I was just going to really quickly talk about Assassin's Creed Valhalla. I'm like 63, 65 hours into Assassin's Creed Valhalla. On my, if I load up the Ubisoft launcher here, and I go to my profile page, currently says I put 65 hours into Assassin's Creed Valhalla, and I'm about 54% done the game. Now, that doesn't take into account all the DLC that I have for the game, all the DLC stories and expansions that I have for that game. So as far as I'm concerned, I am nowhere close to being done Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Like, I don't think I'm halfway done, but I also don't think that that timer, that progress is counting for things like the other DLC that I have. So I continue to enjoy playing Assassin's Creed Valhalla. I gotta say that story is kind of a disjointed mess. The setup for the story is that you are trying to establish different relationships and different alliances with these different kingdoms and fjords and whatever in England, and each alliance that you try to build has its own kind of story, and you can approach any of these kingdoms in different order that you want. So, once one relationship is done, you kind of never see or hear or talk to those other people again. I'm assuming that these relationships that you've been establishing throughout the entire story are going to lead to something, but like, there are people that I talked to 10 hours into the game and I helped them solve their problem, and now they're my homies, and now they're like, oh, I'll lend you my axe. Like, I ain't seen or heard of those people in like the last 50 hours. And I would also say some of the individual stories in terms of the problems these kingdoms have and how you're trying to solve it, some of that stuff can be a little hit or miss. However, if you approach it from the perspective of like, I just want to see some Viking stories, I just want to see some Viking tales, I just want to do what the Vikings do, then there is still a lot to enjoy from Valhalla. I just don't find it to be the most cohesive story, and I don't find it to be the most consistent story from a quality perspective, but I don't think I'm going to be stopping myself with Valhalla anytime soon. Really want to get through that, and I also would really like to finish that game in time for Horizon Forbidden West to come out on PC in March. Fingers crossed that we can finish it, though I am starting to think that Valhalla might not ever end. I think that's going to do it for the podcast. Thank you so much for joining me today. It's been a good podcast. I'm going to try to play some more Palworld. I'm going to try to play some more Valhalla. I hope you get the chance to play more games, whatever games that you've been playing. And you can find everything that I do over at my Linktree, linktree.com/GnittWitt, GnittWitt, Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Instagram Threads, Blue Sky, you name it, I'm there. Maybe I'll see about reconnecting with Helldivers 2 if we can find some people to play with. I'm not too sure, though. I might wait for that game to go on sale, or might wait for them to finish up some more of the technical difficulties that are still plaguing some of that game. Maybe wait for some more content updates. I'm not too sure, but I'm still thinking about Helldivers 2. I haven't completely written it off. I just need to be in a position to play it with other people and have that game be rock solid in terms of stability. I didn't have a lot of technical difficulties when I was playing the game, so they might be well on their way to fixing that stuff. We shall see. That is going to do it for Glitch Report. I have been GnittWitt. We will see you all next week, but come on back for more tomorrow, 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, for some Assassin's Creed Valhalla on twitch.tv/GnittWitt. We'll see you then. Take it easy. Oh my God, my mouse died. What happened to my mouse? Oh my God, my mouse died. How can I end this podcast if the mouse doesn't work. There we go. Now the mouse is working. Okay, now this podcast is actually over. All right, we're done.